And welcome to video number 2. In video number 2, we're going to talk about mental health because a lot of people think about going onto social media but posting that they are going to help themselves on a mental basis in order to get themselves through a moment or two or a lifetime. And so one of those elements, are you going to use what you're about to build as your therapy session, or are you going to be using it as a way to be able to teach something to get your mind off of it? How do you plan on handling your mental stability when going on social media? And for those that have never been in part of a leadership role like I am, you don't realize what you're going to get yourself into until you're there, and then you realize that you could be mentally unstable and in some cases even suicidal based on the social media comments that will come in. Fact is, every day I get negative comments. And how I handle those negative comments are really up to me to be able to be a strong person. When I started this whole thing, I was like literally wearing every comment on my sleeve. And over the years, which has taken me years to get over, is to be able to say, you know what, so-and-so is having a really bad day today, and that their anger of lashing out at me is their way of communicating, but in no way should I be accepting responsibility for their anger. Sometimes the anger is justified though. So if I will take a risk and I will like literally film something that may be an opinion piece, that is my own opinion, you have to be prepared for the negative comments that would come back. Social media, it's a two-way street. It's not just you standing on a pedestal lecturing everybody on what they should do in their lives. It is a two-way communication. And where most people fail is when that two-way communication is only one way. So if you're going to stand and talk on the soapbox but not listen to your own community, then you literally are going to set yourself up for failure. The key element is to build the community with you so that you're standing within the group, not on top of the group. So when you're in a group of people, you should feel like you're equal to these people. You should not feel like you're better than these people. And I think that is one of the things that pisses me off the most when it comes to social media, on how many people literally will start something like this and then all of a sudden think their shit doesn't stink, when in actual fact they are human like everybody else. And that interaction, what people perceive you are, to be somebody that people cannot connect with, is really key. So if you can build those relationships right off the hop, you will find that the community will work with you instead of you standing alone. But if you are going to stand up on the soapbox, you have to be prepared for that. So let's give you some negative comments. Think about what you would say if somebody said the following. If you're going to operate or teach something with your hands or using your face, what if I criticized your face and said that your face looks uneven and that I noticed that one eyebrow is a little bit lower than the other? How will you handle that? It would be better if you were dead. Can you think about doing suicide and do us all a favor? I'm Canadian, but the comment came in that if I travel to the United States, it'll be the last time I ever travel. One of the problems with social media is that we can age in time. So I've been doing it for 14 years. I started off as pretty skinny. I'm not so skinny anymore, but I'm also 14 years older. So how you handle somebody that says, gee, you've gotten really fat and ugly over the years? It's a valid comment. All your tips are garbage. I would never do it the way that you're doing it. You know what? You should really think about going back to school or just picking up some more skills, because clearly you don't know what you're talking about. I believe that everybody is supposed to be equal in life. However, people like me in the alternative lifestyles ends up becoming a political punching bag. And so depending on where people live and how they perceive an alternative lifestyle like mine, it does set me up for really, really negative comments. So I'll leave a quick personal story for you. I've realized over the years that the negative commenting comes in waves. It'll be flat for a while and then you'll get a few, and then all of a sudden it will start tick up to the point where it's a tidal wave about to take you over. And during those tidal waves, I can get really almost suicidal in that moment when I get that. And it's so easy for people to tell you online, well, don't pay attention to the trolls. What I've realized over the last 14 years of doing this, that the US political system has a great negative impact on people that are just trying to function and live their lives. Because I'm an alternative lifestyle, and I'm not afraid to say that, people will look for people like me online to be able to target their hate. But so you have a politician that will try to run my community over with the bus and try to take away the equality. and people will stand in the audience and they will stand ovation, the politician smiles walking off the stage, and yet afterwards the amount of negative shit that will come in my way as a result of a politician doing that is absolutely outstanding, to the point where suicide almost seems like it's the great option to be able to escape from it. So you have to realize that sometimes the negative comments that you will get are not necessarily your fault, but you're being targeted because of the social climate of things that may be happening within. So sometimes the negative comments can come across one way or another. I had somebody that I once knew, and he would post on Twitter a comment that completely disagreed with what he would actually say behind the scenes. And I said, well, why are you doing that? And he goes, I just want to see people fight. And so what you have to be aware of is that sometimes the negative comments on your social media isn't intended to give you constructive criticism, but what they're trying to do is create a pile-on. One of the worst elements that we had was the Crochet Crowd Facebook Stitch social that we had. We would have people that would intentionally post shit so that it would cause a whole gamut of problems. It was like literally several times a day of having to stand in between people to get them to stop the fight, and realize it was better to take somebody out of a community than it is to leave them. And so when you take these people out, you're basically taking away their megaphone, which then could create a lot of issues behind the scenes. So for us, not all social media platforms are the best. And sometimes people just abuse those social media platforms for their own personal entertainment. So you have to realize that some of the negative comments is designed for that person, for their own selfish need, in order to watch people just tear each other apart. So I guess the question is, are you a fighter, or are you a person that is going to be part of the solution? I used to be part of this Facebook page where the moderator was always just rampant on people. And so somebody would post something that the moderator didn't like. So instead of the moderator dealing with that person individually, it became announcement after announcement after announcement. I told you people not to post stuff like this. I'm like, okay, you're addressing like 10,000 people, but it's only 2 people that are the problem. And so are you a person that is going to handle the negativity, or when somebody steps out of line, are you going to take it offline and deal with that individually, or are you going to use the community as like the sounding board? How you handle people is really key. I'm not always going to get right, and we've not always done it right to my point of view. Sometimes, the day when you get too many people fighting with each other, you start making rash decisions. And it's like, take it out, take it out, take it out. And I'm like, well, that really wasn't a big deal in retrospect. Sometimes I've learned is that you have to take a 24-hour rest before you decide to react to something. And you will find that even though you're angry about it at this particular moment, given tomorrow, you may not be as angry and have a better thought process on how to deal with things. But certain situations, absolutely, you have to deal with right at the moment. So are you a fighter, or are you more neutral? How will you handle people that are going to personally overstep you so that you can keep your community in a good mental space? And finally today, not every criticism is going to be a negative one. Sometimes it is in your best interest. I had a person that commented that I'm too far away from the camera on something. That to me is not a negative criticism. That's a very valid thing. So it's something that you can learn. So if you ignore what the community is saying back to you and just keep on going and going and going, you may be overlooking the obvious. So I have found that most times that the community is actually working in your interest, in the sense they just want to help you out. And so some people have a really off-putting way of making a comment that they can come across as more stern. Also, different cultures are sometimes lacking the please and thank yous and can come across as really rude. So you have to realize that not every communication that you're reading, especially if you're in a terrible mood yourself, that a very innocent criticism can read really negative depending on your headspace. So the question is, can you handle constructive criticism, and can you recognize it versus criticism that is intended to roll you over? So that's where I'm going to leave you today. How are you going to handle the criticism? Is it something that you can mentally handle? Because if you can't handle it, this definitely is not the field for you. And as the years have marched on from 2008 to 2023, the amount of negativity, the amount of hate, and the amount of thing has ramped up exponentially to the point where I don't even know what the future of social media is at this point. But if you think you can't handle it, this is where your journey would end. So I'll see you on the next video.